Can you believe she's not doing anything, even though her baby is on the way? What kind of parent does that make her? When I opened the door, I saw my daughter Jessica and her husband Thomas. Thomas looked upset and began complaining about the dirty floor and the messy bathroom. He seemed to think it was my fault that Jessica wasn't cleaning. I tried to explain that Jessica's pregnancy made it difficult for her, but Thomas wasn't listening. Instead, he told me he was leaving her because she couldn't keep the house clean. I'm Rebecca, 54 years old. I work at a large company, and it's just been Jessica and me since her dad passed away. Raising her on my own was tough, but her happiness always made it worthwhile. Jessica is a kind-hearted person with great friends, but she struggled when it came to finding a boyfriend. I hoped she'd meet someone in high school or college, but it didn't happen. Eventually, she started dating a guy she met through a friend, and after a couple of years, they got engaged. I was thrilled for her, even though it meant she would be moving out soon. Thomas, her husband, is older and extremely focused on his career. He often works late or goes out, leaving Jessica to handle all the housework. I thought they should share the duties, but I didn't want to interfere too much in their lives. Then, about 6 months after their wedding, Jessica invited me to lunch to tell me she was pregnant. Jessica always loved children. Even though she didn't have siblings, she'd often talk about wanting a little brother or sister. But since I didn't plan on remarrying, I couldn't give her that. Despite being married, Jessica still dreamed of having kids, and she would lovingly talk to her belly. So excited about becoming a mom. Seeing her so happy made me incredibly joyful. As we said goodbye after lunch, I reminded Jessica that I was there for her if she needed anything. Throughout her pregnancy, she kept working, so I checked in on her often. But when I was given a big project at work that required a lot of travel, I worried about leaving her alone. Jessica reassured me she'd be fine, so I focused on my work. As her due date neared and my project was almost finished, I called Jessica to discuss plans for when the baby arrived. But Thomas answered instead. He said Jessica was useless and that he was bringing her to my place. An hour later, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Jessica looking disheveled. She seemed completely different. She couldn't even manage a smile. Dark circles under her eyes, dry skin, and cracked hands made her look so worn out. She didn't look like a woman in her 20s anymore. Her posture was distant, as though she wasn't even here. What had happened to her in just a few months? I let them in and asked them to sit down. I turned to Thomas, demanding, "What's going on? Why is Jessica like this?" He seemed surprised and didn't show any shame as he answered, "Are you blaming me? She's the one who's slowing down because of her belly. You know housework is a woman's job, and she even faked being sick to get out of it." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You made her do all the chores, even when she was sick? Pregnancy isn't an illness. She even asked me for help, and I've been working all day. She's struggling and can't manage everything right now. Please take care of her until the baby comes. That's when I realized he didn't understand pregnancy or how to be a good husband or father. I couldn't trust him to care for my daughter. "I'll take care of her. I can't trust you to do it right." Thomas snapped. "If your daughter's a mess, it's your fault. You didn't raise her right. She doesn't know how to treat her husband without a father figure. I'm the one suffering here. Once the baby's born, come get it. In the meantime, teach your daughter how to behave." Before walking out, he told me to fix her upbringing before the baby arrived, and then he left, leaving Jessica behind. I was shocked by his nerve. I regretted her marrying him. Jessica just sat there, completely lost. The first thing I needed to do was make her feel safe. I went to the kitchen, poured milk into her favorite cup with a bit of sugar, and warmed it up. "Be careful, it's hot," I warned as I handed it to her. As Jessica sipped, tears streamed down her face. I sat next to her, gently rubbing her back, ready to listen to whatever she needed to say. Jessica opened up about Thomas. Despite being pregnant, he kept going to work parties and leaving her alone when she needed him most. He wouldn't help with anything around the house, even demanding that she do chores while feeling sick. "Get up, you've been lounging all day. You haven't done the dishes or laundry," he would say. Sometimes, he'd come home drunk and demand that she cook and clean for him and his colleagues. I felt my anger rising, hearing how my daughter was being treated like a servant. Jessica said she didn't want to burden me or mess up my career, so she endured it. She even asked doctors to explain the changes her body was going through. But Thomas wouldn't listen. Her family was too far away to help, and she always put others before herself. I hugged Jessica tightly and whispered, "From now on, it's okay to put yourself first. Jessica, if you need help, just ask. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I gently stroked her hair, and she whispered back, "Mom, thank you," before breaking down in sobs. In the days that followed, Jessica seemed to deteriorate emotionally as her due date approached. When I came home from work, the house was spotless. Despite my insistence that she rest, Jessica insisted on doing chores. She would even try to move heavy items or fix broken lights. Sometimes, she'd pack her bags, afraid of facing her husband's wrath. I thought she might need professional help, so I reached out to our neighbor Lisa, who used to be a therapist, for a recommendation. "Lisa, can I talk to you? It's about my daughter," I said as she welcomed me in. I shared Jessica's situation with Lisa and her husband Kevin, and they recommended a good clinic. Jessica had been feeling unwell, so she started going to the hospital. Lisa and Kevin checked in on her when I was at work. Thankfully, Jessica started to feel better and even smiled more, like she used to. When Jessica's due date arrived, I rushed Jessica to the hospital as her contractions began. I stayed by her side, comforting her, rubbing her back, and wiping away her sweat, offering words of encouragement. When it was time for her to head to the delivery room, I waited nervously outside, anxiously awaiting the sound of our baby's first cry. A nurse soon reassured me that both Jessica and the baby were healthy, bringing immense relief. When I saw them, Jessica was holding our baby, peacefully sleeping in her arms. Despite my frustrations with Thomas, I still reached out to let him know our daughter had been born healthy. However, when Thomas arrived and saw the baby, he made cruel remarks. "Ugh, babies look like monkeys. Not cute at all. Jessica, you're lying in bed with no makeup, looking lazy. Put some effort into how you look. You're a woman." The medical staff who overheard him were furious, confronting Thomas for his lack of support. But Thomas only grew more agitated, snapping back, "Shut up. My mom worked right after giving birth. This is just laziness. I've never heard of a woman not going back to work immediately after having a baby." It was clear to me that Thomas's memory was distorted, and his ignorance about pregnancy and childbirth showed. He stormed out, not even bothering to come for Jessica when it was time for her to go home. I worried about sending her back to him, so I offered for her to stay with me. But Jessica insisted on returning home. She didn't want Sarah growing up without a father. Reluctantly, I called Thomas to ask if he would come to pick them up, but his response was dismissive. He said he was too busy with work and didn't want to deal with a crying baby before hanging up. I brought Jessica and Sarah home with me, suggesting she stay until she felt more confident with parenting. Since Thomas hadn't bought any baby supplies, Jessica and I went shopping to make sure they had everything they needed. When I asked about a name, it became clear that Thomas had never thought about it. So, Jessica and I chose one together, naming her Sarah. Our neighbors, Lisa and Kevin, were aware of the situation and helped by watching over Sarah. With their support, she thrived. 3 months later, Thomas showed up unexpectedly, demanding that Jessica and Sarah return to him. "Hurry up, you're always so slow," Thomas yelled from the front door. But Jessica had finally had enough of him. She decided to divorce him and refused to let him control her any longer. "I'm not coming back. I'll send you the divorce papers," she said firmly. Thomas, in shock, shouted back, "Are you serious? A man with a wife and kids has a better chance in life. What's the point of staying married to you if we're going to divorce? I'm not getting divorced." Jessica was furious, realizing Thomas had only married her and had a child for the sake of his career. Before I could respond, Lisa and Kevin stepped outside. When Thomas saw Kevin, he went pale. "Boss, what are you doing here?" Thomas stammered. Kevin, visibly disappointed, said, "So, you're Jessica's husband? The one who abandoned his child for 3 months? Unbelievable. I can't trust someone like you. I'll inform the CEO, and your promotion is off the table." Thomas begged Kevin, but Kevin was unmoved. "You don't get it. You only cared about your work." Thomas broke down in desperation, but Kevin was firm, refusing to listen. Feeling utterly defeated, Thomas collapsed to his knees. Kevin, a well-respected family man, couldn't tolerate seeing Thomas treat his family so poorly. It soon became clear that Thomas had been pretending to be a good husband and father at work just to climb the corporate ladder. That day, Thomas returned home in silence. At work, he began pressuring his colleagues to vouch for him. But when that didn't work, he went straight to the CEO. "Sir, I've worked tirelessly for this company. My sales numbers are high. Please approve my promotion," Thomas pleaded. But the CEO, having already heard from Kevin, responded coldly, "Your numbers may look good, but your approach has been unethical. You can't sacrifice the company's reputation for your own gain. If you can't understand that, you won't be moving up. My expectations for you are finished." Thomas left the CEO's office, utterly deflated. The CEO, known for his integrity, had made his decision based on more than just Thomas's reports. It was a clear message. Demotivated, Thomas began making more mistakes at work, and he was eventually transferred to a less significant position in a regional department. At least he didn't lose his job entirely. After his transfer, Thomas repeatedly came to our house, begging for another chance and asking to see Sarah. Both Jessica and I ignored him. But when his persistence became overwhelming, Kevin warned him that he would report him to the CEO, which could cost him his job. After that, Thomas stopped bothering us. It was obvious his affection was superficial. When Kevin learned that Jessica was having difficulty with her divorce proceedings, he recommended a top lawyer. The divorce went smoothly, and Jessica even received compensation for emotional distress. As for Thomas, he seemed to be living a quiet, lonely life in a small rural town, far from the life he once knew. Kevin told me that the last time Thomas came to the office, he looked completely different, disheveled, unshaven, and noticeably thinner. In the small town where Thomas now lived, conveniences like dry cleaners and stores are few and far between, and it seemed like he couldn't be bothered to take care of himself. Having never lifted a finger around the house, Thomas likely didn't know how to manage basic tasks on his own. Perhaps he regretted treating Jessica like a servant now that he was alone. With everything lost, his marriage, his career, and his family, Thomas even started missing child support payments for Sarah. When Jessica reminded him, he would complain about how hard his life was, almost in tears. I advised Jessica to take legal action, and once she requested child support through the proper channels, the payments were promptly made. Since then, Thomas hasn't reached out to see Sarah. If she wants to, we'll contact him, but Jessica and I have decided to raise her with all the love and care she needs, even without him in her life. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay stunned.